The coastal town of Waterville, Maine was a quilted landscape, hewn together by pine trees, rolling hills, and the crisscross of cobblestone streets. In the heart of this charming hamlet, hunched among weathered colonial buildings, the old church towered, its once sacred visage now imbued with an artistic spirit. In a modest house tucked away in the shadow of the church, dwelled Elias Gray. The seclusion of the place suited him. It was a haven for a man who'd grown acquainted with the confounding labyrinth of his own mind. His soft-spoken nature, the frayed edges of his anxiety, all hidden behind the kind eyes that had seen too many winters. Elias was a solitary figure, a detective who still believed he could sew a stitch or two into the world's fraying tapestry. As dawn's delicate fingers painted the sky, he received a visitor. The carriages of Marjorie Sinclair, a figure of considerable importance and wealth in the town, stood outside his modest abode. She was an elegant woman with a steely demeanor that belied her advanced years, her eyes a clear azure, much like the serene coastal waters. "Mr. Gray," she began, her voice resonating in the sparsely furnished room, "my concerns revolve around the art dealers who've made a roost in our church." She unraveled her story as he listened, his expression unreadable. The art dealers, all recent migrants to the town, had sparked suspicion in Marjorie with their unorthodox practices and peculiar artwork. The church had transformed into an alien spectacle under their influence, its ancient sanctity replaced by an uncanny atmosphere. He agreed to look into the matter, his firm handshake with Marjorie promising commitment and assurance. He spent the remainder of the day tracing the faint tendrils of normalcy in his routine, his encounters with the townsfolk revealing his earnest goodwill. His world was this town, and its people, his every action designed to keep them from the same terrors that had once cornered him. Under the anemic glow of the setting sun, he found himself in front of the repurposed church. As he stepped inside, a congregation of art awaited him. The hushed whispers of visitors, the color-drenched paintings that adorned the walls, the clay sculptures that seemed eerily alive. It was a bazaar of strange creativity. As he moved deeper into the church, he felt a prickling sensation, as though he were descending into an abyss, being watched by unseen eyes. The artworks took on a more sinister tone, the shadowy figures on the canvas seeming to leer out at him. The artists themselves, shadow-cloaked and eccentric, moved with a strange rhythm that tugged at his core, a peculiar dance with an unknown cadence. As the day ebbed away, he left the church, his mind occupied with swirling thoughts. He walked alone under the stars' indifferent gaze, the old church casting long, stretching shadows that seemed to reach out to him, beckoning him deeper into the enigma. Elias greeted the nascent dawn with a firm resolve, the church's oddities having marinated in his thoughts overnight. Today he was determined to dissect the esoteric puzzle that had been placed in his lap. As he trudged toward the church, the town of Waterville lay still, caught in the yawn of morning. The familiar aroma of pines wafted through the air, a scent he found grounding in these uncertain times. Upon reaching the church, he found the art dealers engrossed in their arcane craft. Each artist was a specter of concentration, churning out pieces that were more disconcerting than the last. They moved around the church like apparitions, their hands leaving traces of their presence in the form of grotesque art that imbued the church with an uncanny aura. In his discreet investigation, he scrutinized the artwork, his gaze absorbing the unsettling shades, the eerie faces, the contorted figures. Each piece was a grotesque opera, a display of existential dread. As he examined them, his detective instincts and his latent anxiety coiled together like twin serpents, feeding off each other. He took the time to speak to each artist, their words a strange mixture of enigma and casual conversation. Their expressions, hidden behind the veil of their craft, revealed nothing. Yet their words, each syllable chosen with an artist's precision, hinted at something greater, something that hovered just beyond comprehension. And then, the back room, a place where the artists seemed to bear their souls onto canvas and clay. The art here was more bizarre, more terrible. Each piece was a cyclone of chaos and fear, the patterns and figures shifting and distorting subtly when viewed from peripheral vision. A cold dread filled the room, an almost palpable aura of terror that hinted at realities beyond the mortal plane. The more he probed, the more unsettling the truth became. His nerves tingled in dreadful anticipation, anxiety curling around his heart like an iron fist. His breath hitched in his throat as he realized that the art, each creation, was merely a facet of a terrifying cosmic mosaic. As the sun began to dip beneath the horizon, he left the church, each step heavier than the last. He had unearthed fragments of a horrifying reality, pieces of a jigsaw that were beginning to align in his mind, forming an image too horrifying to comprehend fully. Sleep eluded him that night. Visions began to haunt him, forms without shape, shadows without source, and voices without bodies whispering the chaos of the cosmos. He tossed and turned, caught in the whirlwind of his own thoughts, the boundary between reality and nightmare gradually blurring. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the veil of night, he found himself standing before a precipice that overlooked the yawning abyss of the unknown, the cosmic horror that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. And it was this precipice that he was about to cross. Elias woke to a world tainted by the eerie brush strokes of his nocturnal visions. His once sanctuary-like home now echoed with the whispers of his night terrors, his mind a fractured mirror reflecting the horrors of the otherworldly. Waterville, under the somber morning sky, seemed like a hollow echo of its former charm. Throughout the day, his visions continued. Reality warped and undulated around him, folding and unfolding in strange, disconcerting ways. Time itself seemed to have been caught in this chaotic waltz. He saw things out of the corner of his eyes, unspeakable shapes moving, lurking, waiting. The town's quaint streets were now veins in a vast cosmic creature. The trees, the sea, the birds. Everything seemed alien, instilled with a terrible life of their own. Caught in this fever dream of madness, he found himself returning to the church. The artists, locked in their usual dance of creation, offered him their uncanny smiles, their eyes glittering with an unsettling knowledge. Each conversation with them was a step deeper into the labyrinth of chaos, the cryptic exchanges feeding his growing paranoia and distress. In the midst of this unfolding madness, he found himself grappling with the demons of his past. His history of anxiety disorder, once a distant memory, now rose from the depths like a reanimated corpse. Each vision, each encounter with the uncanny, twisted the knife deeper into his old wounds, reopening them with a savage pleasure. One particular piece of art, an immense canvas adorned with a chaotic swirl of colors and shapes that seemed to capture the essence of a cosmic void, drew his attention. He felt an inexplicable connection to this piece, a horrifying magnetism that was impossible to resist. As he stared at it, the painting seemed to stare back, its alien figures dancing in the shadows, their grotesque faces twisting into unsettling smiles. As the world spun around him, he found himself sucked into the painting, its colors morphing into cosmic landscapes, its shapes twisting into monstrous entities. The whispers of the cosmos echoed in his ears, an indescribable language that chilled his very soul. He was in the painting, and the painting was in him, a symbiotic horror that stretched his sanity to its breaking point. It was late evening when he emerged from his trance, his heart pounding in his chest, his body drenched in cold sweat. He was no longer just an investigator. He was a prisoner of an awful truth, a horrifying reality that now infected his world. The thin veneer of normalcy had been peeled back, revealing the raw, pulsating horror beneath. That night, as he lay in his bed, his mind whirled with the terrifying revelations of the day. The shadows in his room twisted and stretched, forming grotesque silhouettes against the bare walls. He was no longer alone in his world. The cosmic horrors had breached the walls of his sanctuary. He knew what he had to do next, to confront the artists, break free from this nightmare, and reclaim his world. As dawn broke, Elias, now a changed man, prepared to embark on his final journey into the heart of the cosmic nightmare, armed with nothing but his sheer determination and the crushing weight of his horrifying revelations. He welcomed the dawn with weary eyes that had glimpsed the cosmic abyss. He stood tall under the frail morning light, his body a stoic shell housing a mind on the precipice of insanity. But within him, a resolute spirit was kindled, a lone beacon in the vast darkness of his reality. As he returned to the church, Waterville felt like a dream half remembered. The town he had pledged to protect was now a grotesque caricature, draped in the unsettling hues of his new reality. And it was in this warped canvas of existence he realized that his greatest challenge awaited him. The artists, each a puppeteer of the cosmic chaos, seemed almost expectant of his arrival. Their eyes glowed with an ominous light as they continued their dance around their artistic totems. The church, once a symbol of solace, now felt like the heart of a monstrous beast, beating in tune with the rhythm of the cosmic horror. Summoning the remnants of his courage, he confronted the artists. Their reactions were a mix of mock surprise and cold acceptance, a morbid pantomime that further unnerved him. Their dialogues felt like a cacophony of cryptic phrases, each word a shard of glass piercing his sanity. "You've looked beyond the veil, Elias," they murmured, their voices merging into an unsettling harmony. "There's no turning back now." As the exchange unfolded, he felt an indescribable pull towards the colossal painting, the core of this chaotic symphony. With a deep breath, he lunged towards the canvas. His hand tore through the painting, rupturing the connection between the artists and their otherworldly masters. The reaction was instantaneous. The church shuddered. The artists recoiled, their screams echoing off the ancient walls. A maelstrom of unseen forces unleashed themselves, the space around the painting warping, distorting, convulsing. It was as if reality itself was rebelling against the cosmic intrusion. Despite the pandemonium, Elias managed to extricate himself from the tumult. As he staggered out of the church, he watched as the building began to implode, collapsing in on itself like a dying star. He could still hear the screams of the artists, the sound soon swallowed by the deafening roar of the implosion. As the dust settled, he found himself standing in the empty space where the church once stood. He was alone, the quiet punctuated by his ragged breaths. The artists in their unholy temple had been consumed by the singularity, erased from existence. He walked away from the scene, his heart heavy with the weight of the experience. He had confronted the abyss and emerged a changed man. His every step echoed with the knowledge of the horrors that lurked beyond the veil of reality. As he trudged back to his quiet home, he knew his life would never be the same. The cosmic horrors had left their mark on him, a damning testimony of his journey into the abyss. But he was not defeated. He had protected his world, and with this new knowledge, he would continue his vigil, a solitary guardian against the darkness that lurked beyond. As the night closed in, he stared at the indifferent stars. He had seen the darkness they hid, the cosmic horrors they masked, but he had also seen the strength within him, a resilience that would continue to fuel his fight against the encroaching darkness. And with that thought, Elias Gray, the private investigator from the quaint town of Waterville, Maine, disappeared into the night, his story a haunting echo in the cosmic winds. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to our channel, where you can find more similar stories, and click on the bell icon to never miss one. There is plenty more cosmic horror to come from the Eldritch Tales Factory. Stay tuned, and until next time.